All right, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. My name is Jeremy Miner, chairman, founder of Seventh Level. I'm here with our prestigious CEO, Matt Ryder, and business partner. Matt, how's the office in Sydney?
Bonjour. Looks like you stepped up your game a little bit.
Well, you know, we're trying to keep up with the Sydney office over here in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. We finally got this podcast room halfway built out with our genius help over here from Avery and Blake today. So let's talk. We've been talking about the last couple of weeks, like, hey, what do we want to talk about this week? You know, we get a lot of questions from salespeople within, our Facebook group and, emails and just, people that are looking at training. How do they sell more? And a lot of questions people ask us is, how do I do a proposal? Like, what should be in my proposals? Like, I'm sending proposals to people and, they say that they're in, that they're really interested. I email them a proposal and then boom, they like just disappear. Nothing happens. I call back, can't get a hold of them. So what am I doing wrong in my proposals? That's actually, yeah, exactly. What am I doing wrong in my proposals that is actually triggering prospects to not get back to me? You ever heard that yourself?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of
it? No, actually, this is a really interesting topic for me because proposals are, proposals and presenting are different skill sets. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think you taught one of our compatriots, Will Hinkson. Will Hinkson's a very good presenter of B2B sort of proposals. And you took him through a bunch of stuff and taught him about, some of the methodologies that you use, root cause, problems, stuff like that, and how you NEPQ proposals. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on proposals first and some of the do's and don'ts that you think people need to adhere by to ensure that their proposals, one, read, I think is an important one, and two, that it's considered, and three, that the deal gets closed.
Well, there's a few rules, general rules you want to follow. So first rule is you never give a prospect a proposal without understanding what their actual problems are and do they have the budget, the funding, the money to actually solve the problem. Now, that's one rule that you have to live by. Like, there's no exceptions to that rule. Even if a prospect says, like, let's say early in the conversation, hey, Matt, can you just send me a proposal, with your pricing in it? I see so many salespeople like, yeah, I'll send you a proposal. And then they email it and never hear back, right? So you have to live that rule. You never, ever send a proposal without first understanding, do they have the money, the funding, the budget? What are their actual problems? What are their objectives? Where are they trying to go? So even if a potential prospect says, can you just send me a proposal? Like in the first 2 minutes of a conversation, can you just send me a proposal with your pricing in it? You want to say something like this. And I'll just kind of teach you a little tactical question. And I would say something like, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd be open, to putting together a proposal for you. Now, just so you're aware, I'm not quite sure if we can even help you yet. Should I ask a few questions about your situation to be able to put something together for you that might be more useful and then send you the proposal? Would that help you better? Now, when you do that, people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Because if you just fall prey to that, email it out, you're dead in the water. Okay. Then you're going to start asking what we call situation questions to help you and them find out what their real situation is. So that's rule number one. Okay. Never send out a proposal without understanding that thing first. Okay. Rule number two. All right. So and I even took some notes here for you guys. So rule number two is you want to, So in your proposals, you want to lay out 2 to 3 key problems that the prospect told you during the discovery part of your conversation, okay? So that reminds them of the issues that they want to actually solve, and then it brings back the pain they feel from those problems. We want them, as you know, Matt, to relive that pain. So the proposal should also have the key 2 to 3 objectives that they're also wanting to accomplish. So you want them to feel the pain by the problems they brought up in that discovery call, or maybe second or third meeting, whatever you sell, depends on if it's probably more than like B2B if you're selling if you're using proposals. You're not really sending out a proposal if you're selling cars, obviously, or like health insurance or something. So you want to remind them of the problems they have, and then you want to remind them of the 2 to 3 objectives that they're wanting to accomplish as a company. Okay. Or let's say if you're selling B2C, there might be a few proposals, what they're wanting to accomplish personally, just depends on your industry. Now, that creates a proposal that shows you were actually present in that conversation, showing the prospect that you actually have a complete understanding of their situation and actually how to solve it. So the proposal restates the value to the prospect of actually achieving their objectives. So here's their current state, here's where they want to be, their objective state. And it actually goes over the value of that prospect getting from here to here by you helping them solve their problems. And when you restate the value, it helps you provide contacts for them to actually see that value, so that the price for your solution seems very small compared to them actually getting results and solving the problems of what's holding them back. So you always want, typically what I want to do, Matt, like in our proposals, before we started 7th level, or even when we train companies, is we want the value of solving the prospect's problems and achieving their objectives to be at least 10 times the cost of what your product or service is. So let's say if you're a company solving a problem that's costing that company you're selling to, let's see, $10 million a year in lost revenue, and your solution costs $60,000, well, that seems quite small if you're positioning it correctly for them to stop losing $10 million a year. Are you with me on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a space that I haven't really played too much in, so I'm just sitting back and learning. But I think, from what I've seen, I guess, would you consider like quotes the same as proposals, or would you classify them differently?
Pretty much, yeah. I would always do the same. We train a lot of companies that are giving out quotes for like kitchen remodel or home decor, bathroom remodels, and it's the same thing. If you're just like giving out a quote and hoping and praying that it's the cheapest one, you're pretty much, you have no control in your sales process. So you want the value to like 10 times outweigh that cost, where it looks like the cost is really, really small compared to the results they're actually getting. And if you can't do that, then you've forced the prospect into really thinking more price-based thinking or cost-based thinking rather than results-based thinking. So that's an important thing there. So one of the other thing I would do in rule number 2 is that every proposal that you send out, and we're going to talk about, like, you don't want to email it out, but I'm going to talk to you about what you want to do. Typically, you want to have, especially if you're selling in a B2B complex selling environment, is typically rule of thumb is you want to have 3 options for them to accomplish their goals. And a lot of proposals that we see when we audit companies typically will only have like 1 option. However, when you only have 1 option, okay, sometimes you're going to lose some prospects because even the very best questions you can ask, sometimes you're not going to be able to 100% get their real budget. Okay. Yeah. So if you have 3 options, it just gives them more options. Now, typically option number 1, write this down when you guys are listening here. Option number 1 is you want to give a basic lower priced option that is still obviously very profitable to your company. Okay. Option number 2 is you want to give I would say a middle of the road option. And that's really your core offering. Like that's where most of your prospects are going to buy. Like when you make sales, like most of them are in there, and that's like your sweet spot. And then option 3 is like a high priced option. That's like the premium, the bells and the whistles. And you're going to have some people that will do that. And when you set up the proposal that way with the options, it's just like if you've gone to obviously nice restaurants, like fine dining restaurants. A lot of times they'll present you with like 3 different choices of wines. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this. They'll bring out like 3 bottles of wine. They'll bring like some crazy expensive, like 1910 wine, right? That's like $3,000. They'll bring out a cheap wine that's like maybe $100 or $200, and then they'll bring out this wine that maybe it's like $600 or $700, and that's their sweet spot. Now, the reason why they bring out the wine that's so expensive is they'll have some people that will buy it, but most people when they look at that, they look at the middle one as like, well, that's a really good bargain. It's only $600 compared to $3,000. Nobody really wants the cheap one. That's why restaurants do that. Okay, so when you set your prospect up with those 3 type of options, it just gives you way more opportunity to be able to get them into that middle option. That's why we do that. That's my thoughts on that.
Okay. And is there any like where would you put the price in the proposal?
So what you want to do, so I see a lot of people make this mistake. They'll put the price right up front and then they'll go through the problems and their objectives. I'm like, no, because then a lot of times if that price is a high price, sometimes it will shell shock the prospect.
Mhm.
And now the whole time you're going through everything else in the proposal, they're not even listening to you. They're tuned out like, where am I going to get this money? I don't think I can afford it. So they close off. So what you want to do is you focus on, you bring back. Now, you remember how you were saying that you're having XYZ problem, which is causing your company to A, B, and C, and you repeat back the consequences. So you're going to go over those 2 or 3 problems. So they remember, they relive the pain. Then you're going to go over their objectives. And remember, your company's wanting to, get to this amount of revenue, do this, whatever it is, depending on what you sell. And then you're bringing up the funding they'll need to solve those problems and get them the results they said they're looking for. So by that point, they're like, oh my gosh, have all these problems. We're losing XYZ. Let's say they're losing a bunch of money or whatever. We want to get here, and it's only going to cost us this to get here. Now the value always outweighs the price, 100%. Your thoughts?
No, for sure. I've done things in a few different ways when it comes to that, but B2B proposals and presenting is not something that I've done because I've really focused more on B2C. And I think you can shift around some of the rules on B2C presenting depending on the price points and like how emotional and ROI driven the actual product is. Like when I was doing a lot of fitness sales, I got a much better result doing price first, like not at the top. I'm talking like just before I presented. And there was a very specific reason why, but I also price anchored very heavily in the sort of problem awareness stages.
Sure.
But again, like it's a funny one because I see a lot of people, sending out lots of proposals and not really getting much back. And so when it comes to, do you recommend always trying to present your proposal in person rather than just emailing it to them? Like if they say, send me a proposal, would you go, okay, cool. I'll get that together. Let's book another call. And then from there you present your proposal, because I would assume just emailing them out, like you're not going to get much bite from that.
Yeah. It's, oh God, I see so many salespeople make this mistake. They'll get all excited. They'll email the proposal out and then they never hear from the prospect, because here's a problem by emailing a proposal out like that is that they probably are not going to understand the ins and outs of your pricing. They're not going to understand the ins and outs of what you're going to do for them. They might have some type of concern and then you're not there. And then now you're chasing them. So rule number 1 is, like I said, you never, ever, and I'm glad you brought this up, is you never, ever, ever email the proposal over to the prospect. Okay. Otherwise you're just dead in the water. All right. Because you're just, like I said, you're not there to help them overcome any concerns that they're probably going to have unless they're just a lay down sale. Okay. So when you're doing, a presentation, or, you're wanting to go through the proposal, you want to do that face to face, right? Or on Zoom, or at least over the phone. And I would highly suggest that you go over the proposal face to face, obviously if the client's in town, or at least over Zoom, right? So they can see your body language. You can see their body language. When you're going over the options, you can answer any concerns they have. If you do that, you have a way, way, way bigger chance of actually closing that deal, 100%. So like I said, general rules of thumbs: do the presentation around the problems, challenges, issues that the prospects mentioned to you in that first call discovery, that during that engagement, that engagement call. And here's the problem. Like I see so many salespeople, like even in a presentation, let's kind of talk about that now. When they're presenting to a prospect, especially in B2B, is they have like these 50 slide decks in a row, and they're going through a presentation for an hour and a half. And then you see this, like, I know you haven't been in this situation because you mainly sold B2C, but in B2B sales, you might be in a boardroom and you're going through like a 50 freaking, all these different slides. And I'm telling you, like, you can see people like fall asleep and zone out, get on their phone, like while you're going through it, and they're texting people and, blah, blah. I mean, you're just dead in the water. So it's just 100% rule when you go over the presentation, or obviously the proposal, you want to make sure that you're at least on Zoom with them so you can see their body language. You're there to answer their concerns or anything like that. 100%.
And do you stick to the same time frames where you're like, it's, 10 to 15% of the total length of the sales process? So if you have, if the sales process is 4 calls of 30 minutes, you got 2 hours. So really you've got, what's that, 200, you got around, max sort of 30-minute presentation. But I would assume
people zone out. Yeah, I find people zone out after about 30 minutes. I mean, our attention span, especially if they've got their phone right there, they're looking back and forth on their social media, they're checking emails. So typically, rule of thumb in a presentation, like it's typically 20 to 30 minutes. Like even when I was selling in, in kind of a really complex selling environment, selling like big debt relief, to like big corporations and different things like that, my presentation was like maybe 20 minutes because I'm just aligning the problems they have with where they want to go. And then here's the funding they need to actually solve that. It doesn't take that long. I don't need to show them like the corporate building and we've been in business for 27 years. And here's the pictures of our founders and here's a picture of their family. And we won the AAA ranking for the Better Business Bureau last year. Like literally your prospects do not care when you do that. And they're used to every salesperson doing that. All they care about is, can you solve our problems? And can you get us the results that we're looking for? And when you focus in on that, your prospects are very focused back.
Yeah, I had a meeting today with with the owner of a very large insurance company. They're the largest pet insurance company in North America, and he was the founder. He's actually not a family friend. So I reached out to him to get a meeting with him, and he was very obliging. And he basically told me the same thing. He's like, businesses are only in business to solve a problem, and hopefully you sell the solution to that problem to more than it costs you to solve it, and that's how you make a profit. And that is the nuts and guts of the only thing that they care about. And I was like, that's a pretty good way of looking at it. And so I guess, what are some common threads that you see in successful proposals versus unsuccessful ones? Or let's go through presentations. Like, I'm assuming I've been pitched many times. You've been pitched many times. What are some common threads of like, this is something that is guaranteed to turn off the prospect?
Just long presentations definitely turn off. Like I said, 50 page slide decks, all these slide decks are going through. Here's our corporate office. We won the Better Business Award last year. Here's a picture of our clients. Here's a picture of our owners. Just like you said, nobody cares. So a lot of times when you do that, it triggers sales resistance where people are just like, hey, can you speed that up? Like we already know that, or whatever. Can you get to the point? Literally, you'll see people do that.
Like I'll just play devil's advocate, but it's like, but Jeremy, like how are they going to trust us? Like how are they going to know that we're legit in the marketplace and that we are the like a proven element?
They're already doing the research on you between the first call, discovery call, and maybe the demo and the proposal. Like, do we not think that they're actually using a search engine to look us up? They already see that, right? Now, if you want to, you can, we've taught companies like, oh, we got to have that. We won this award in the pitch deck. We got to have this in the pitch deck. And so what I did is like, okay, so briefly mention it, but act like it's not important. So, they'll pull it up on whatever, let's say their laptop, it's on the wall or whatever, they're sharing it on Zoom or whatever. Like, okay, yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of awards. We've got a lot of clients, I'm not, no need. Our corporate office is big, but who really cares? That doesn't really help you guys. And then you just you go through those slides, like real quick. And then you get right to the heart of the matter. So you can kind of see that, but you're not sitting there like, here's our corporate office. We moved into this 12 years ago. We're expanding over here to this office now. Okay, here's the awards we won last year, the AAA Better Business Bureau Award, the Customer Service Award for the direct selling of this and this. Like you just briefly seed it and then you move on into the point. That's what we typically will teach companies to do if they want to keep that in there. Most of the companies already know these type of things. Really, your expertise as a company or as a salesperson is determined in their mind by the questions you ask them, which shows them that you are an expert and an authority in what you're actually offering. That's really where people feel that you're going to get them the results, not by how pretty your building works or, we've got these clients over here, because then here's the problem you run into by that. I learned this the hard way. This was before you and, you were over here, running the business with me and everything. I remember having a sales call because back in the day, one of my first clients was Google AdWords, right? So we trained 4 of their divisions. And I remember like on one sales call, and this struck me, I'm like, I can't believe I fell for this. Like I know better. And I remember bringing up that, they were one of our clients. And I remember the person giving me this weird look and he said, yeah, but we're looking for really, that's just a completely different type of business model than we have. Like, I don't see how it could help us compared to them. And so I actually triggered that by saying that they were actually one of our clients, because they're like, yeah, that has nothing to do with us. We're in a completely different industry. So I thought it would build credibility. In the same sense, it built no credibility at all. They didn't care at all. Does that make sense? Now,
Yeah.
if I have a client that's in their same industry, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. You can actually widen that out. So I've been doing lots of research in this, and I'm doing lots of courses at the moment. Not like, random courses. Like I'm doing my Harvard Online Business School, and I'm also working with someone to sort of teach more mergers and acquisitions, but also just more of a business, right? And so I've actually learned that you can broaden it out outside the industry to distribution network, right?
Mhm.
So method of distribution. So for example, like you could say, well, Google has the exact same for their Google AdWords. They have the exact same distribution as an insurance company.
Mm.
Right. Even though like you could say they're entirely different. It's like, yeah, but they're just the way in which they sell, the distribution of their product, their service, and how they get lead flow is almost identical. And
Yeah,
so
that's
being able
the
to
point.
tie in different, like not only industry, but also distribution. So I think having an understanding of some of that stuff is really, really helpful. And it's helped me kind of be able to put a few pieces together as a salesperson. But if I go back to being the devil's advocate, because I've obviously heard many reasons as to why some of these things won't work for different industries and different people and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, but Jeremy, like if I'm selling something for $3 million, or if I have an expensive product or service or whatever, then I need a long presentation to be able to, be able to draw them in and kind of do the thing. I need my 2.5 hour presentation with the board. Like,
Well, if you want to have the board zone out, I mean, boards are never really going to give you 2.5 hours in the first place. Let's just be realistic. It's not like,
yeah,
okay, we're going to schedule 2.5 hours for a meeting with XYZ company about solving this problem. I mean, typically, if you're lucky, you're going to get 60 minutes. And a lot of salespeople typically go over that because they have these long-winded presentations. So first of all, you're never really going to get that much time with most companies because they just don't have the time to do that. Second of all, it's just human behavior 101. Do people make buying decisions on logic or emotion? Behavioral science shows 100%, brain studies show 100%. It is 100% emotion. People do not make buying decisions just on logic. They make it on emotion and they justify it later with logic, like it was a good idea, but they go with emotion. And by going through slide decks and showing it in the corporate office and how many awards we've won, and we've got this client and that client, which might be a completely different industry, and you go through that over and over and over, you start to lose whoever you're presenting to. You just lose them. They just start to zone out. It's just like if you're in a chemistry lecture for an hour and a half, you're zoning out after 15 minutes, right?
yeah, exactly. In the military, they limit everything to 40-minute blocks.
Yeah.
Because like that's just how people learn. And people just kind of zone out after 40 minutes. I know I do. It's very hard to hold somebody's attention for 30 minutes. Also, like the way that I see it is like if your sales process, and this is sort of lending it more to B2B when you're in a very condensed time, B2C, sorry, in more of a condensed time frame, because there's a lot of people, a lot of sales trainers and a lot of people like I'm quite specialized in sort of my ability to sell really, really effectively in sort of B2C high ticket coaching. I think I could definitely become a very good, XYZ salesperson because of my understanding of sales. But at the moment, like that's where I'm really good at, is selling that one type of thing. And a lot of people in that particular space like to have these long presentations, like 20-minute presentations. And if you look at it compared to the length of the sales cycle, this is 50% of the sales cycle. They might have a 15-minute call into a 45-minute call. And so it's an hour in total, and they have a 20 to 30-minute presentation. And that's really before you get a chance, you know what I mean? And the thing that I always say is like, well, the reason why I can't do that, because I'm sure that somebody can, and it can be very successful. However, like when the way that we sell using an EPQ, it creates a very large emotional crescendo point towards the back end of solution and consequence. So you sort of they start the call in the status quo. You take them through problem awareness, and then it kind of takes them into the sort of negative space. You take them through solution awareness. It takes them heavily into the positive space. Then you take them through consequence, and it takes them very deeply into like a negative space. So you've created a very powerful need to move forward and a sort of a catastrophic emotional outcome of not moving, of going backwards, or staying the same, which creates a lot of tension, and it's very emotional. And so, if I then, after doing all that hard work and doing that, if I then have a 25-minute slideshow and then I present my price, and then I just don't know how anybody besides maybe Tony Robbins can hold that level of emotion for that long a period of time. It's too difficult. So you undo a tremendous amount of the work that you've done within the sales process. And I think that translates to B2B as well, but maybe not quite as one-to-one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we have so many clients in our Advanced Inner Circle program, both B2C and B2B. But I mean, I know one client that is in that space, like high ticket industry. You know, her name is DD something, but she was like, man, you know, my sales calls are an hour and a half. And she's like, and I'm still I want to think it over at the end. And then she has to schedule another call because she doesn't know how to overcome that. And we taught her NEPQ and the sales structure. And she literally is going through her whole discovery call and presentation and closing in any objections within 35 to 40 minutes. So she's basically cut her calls in half, which now means she can see twice as many leads per day, which now means she makes more money. So it's 100% of the time, like you're going to get them to up to this high emotional state from your discovery call with NEPQ, neuro-emotional persuasion questioning. And then you go through this logic-based presentation with these boring slide decks and it just all is gone. It's just gone, right? So you want to, wrapping up here, we want to follow like a 3-step structure. This is really important. This is both B2C, B2B. It doesn't really matter what you're selling. So you want to, in the presentation, you want to go over the problems they said they had. Now, John, do you remember how you were saying that you're having XYZ problem, which is causing you to ABC? You know, what is it actually causing them? So, and then you're going to repeat this. So one of the biggest problems that people have when they come to us is just exactly what you said. They don't know how to XYZ, which causes them to ABC. So the way we solve that for our clients is and then you go over the specific parts of your product or service that solve that specific problem. And then at the end of that, the third step is you say, and now what that means to you is, and you go over the advantages and benefits of what it's actually going to do for them. You follow that 3-step formula. So that's just on one problem. Now, and then the second pillar you go into now, another big issue that a lot of people have when they come to us is they don't know how to XYZ, which causes them to X and B and C. So the way we solve that for our clients is then you go over how you solve it. And then at the end of that, and what that means to you is, and you go over again, the advantages and benefits of what it actually does for them. You can literally take that formula, because I use that presentation formula. I sold, 4 different industries in my 17-year sales career. 2 of them were B2C, 2 of them are B2B. I literally took that same formula, and that's the same formula we teach all of our clients. Doesn't matter what they sell, any product or service or industry. And I literally took that same formula, and it works like a charm because it emotionally connects the problem to how you solve it and what that means to them personally. And when you do that, it connects the emotional dots. Then at the end of that, we want to ask what's called a checking for agreement question. And what that means to you is, blah, 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 blah. Are you with me on that? Or are we on the same page? Or what are your thoughts about that? Or how do you see that helping you the most though? Or you see how that would work for your situation? See, these are checking for agreement questions. That way we don't just talk for 15 or 20 minutes straight, and we can't get a pulse of the conversation. So you want to use checking for agreement questions in between those 3 or 4 pillars, where you're going from problem, how you solve it, here's what it means to you, and then checking for agreement question. When you do that, it keeps the engagement of the prospect in with you emotionally. And it's just a very easy way to then transition into commitment questions to actually close them at the end of that presentation.
Fantastic. I think you have a meeting to get to, buddy.
I do, my friend. Hey, thanks for being on here. Now, if you're a sales professional, which I'm assuming you are watching this, or you're a coach, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're a sales manager, let's say you got a team, you want to train them to sell more of your products and services. If you're the business owner itself, we're going to give you an opportunity to join our free Facebook group. So you can go to www.salesrevolution.pro. So you can go to www.salesrevolution.pro. There should be a link here where you can join. right when you join, check your DMs. Somebody on the team is going to message you a free training with Matt himself called the NEPQ 101 mini course. And it's just, I got to get it. I got to get it. Boom. No, not that one.
Nope, not that one either. We should probably label them.
I know we should probably label them. I'm just pushing buttons over here. You're going to get a free NEPQ 101 mini course by Matt Ryder herself. Matt's was my top student and then became a CEO and my business partner, a year or so later. So you're going to get a breakdown.
As good at Jeremy at sales. However, I am good at explaining NEPQ in its simplest possible form because that's how I had to do it for my chimp brain to understand it. So
I love that, dude. You're being humble and modest. So you're going to get a free training called the NEPQ 101 mini course with Matt. And he's going to give you a list of questions all the way from connecting questions to situation questions to problem awareness, solution awareness, consequence questions, commitment questions, how to present, kind of a little bit more that we talked about. And just those questions alone are going to help you go out and sell more. And we go live in the Facebook group 3 or 4 times a week with different trainings, different Q&As that people just sell more by even watching that. So Matt, pleasure. Yep. Be safe out there. Man, is it getting cold for you now in Australia? Is it starting to cool down? Summer almost over out there?
Yes, summer's over. We're in fall.
I see you wearing some sweatshirts now. It's starting to get hot here. We got the short sleeves on, different time. I don't know how you guys do Christmas in like a hot Christmas. It's like 100 degrees.
Usually I go to the beach every Christmas Day.
Yeah. I love that. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being on. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.